Donald Trump says he expects to meet Vladimir Putin within 2 weeks.
The leader spoke on the phone, a Kremlin saying the conversation lasted more than 2 hours. Mr. Trump called the call very productive, adding that he raised the issue of Tomahawk missiles that he has previously hinted that he may supply to Ukraine. The Kremlin says Mr. Putin told the U.S. president the missiles will not change the battlefield situation.
Well, that call between the presidents of the U.S. and Russia coming on the eve of Mr. Trump meeting his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, at the White House.
Right, we're joined by Lincoln Mitchell. He's a lecturer of the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. Okay, Professor, there you are. Hello. Yes, I want to start with your take on Mr. Trump's objectives here. Why give the Russian leader another summit now? And what does he think he can accomplish this time that he couldn't in Alaska?
Well, he didn't accomplish much in Alaska. I think he's doing this because at the end of the day, before he meets with Zelenskyy, he's going to talk to Putin. And no matter what we've heard from Trump over the last, going back really to 2015, 2016 now, that relationship is very important to Trump for whatever reason. So Zelenskyy is asking for Tomahawk missiles. When Putin says it won't change the reality on the battlefield, he's not telling the truth. Tomahawk missiles would be very helpful to Ukraine. And I'm sure they spent 2 hours, Putin telling him not to do this. And at the end of the day, that will weigh heavily on Trump's decision. Why he wants another summit? He likes the pomp. He likes the kind of... He's attracted to Putin as this kind of strongman persona. It's kind of a model for him. So, and Trump, this is the part of presidenting that Trump likes. He doesn't like trying to pass legislation. He doesn't like trying to talk to Congress. He doesn't like holding meetings. But these kind of very visible, very kind of fancy dressed up things, he likes that, the kind of pomp and circumstance of being president. And there's nothing like a summit with Putin to do that.
Professor, I want to ask you about the Russian perspective. I mean, you mentioned the Tomahawk missiles and how that's potentially something which prompted, a change, if you like, in Putin's attitude. We also had Pete Hegseth, talking about firepower coming for Ukraine. And we've seen what's happening. The European Union also talking about, defense approaches as a drone, if you like, counter system that's being talked about, and we've also had those incursions, drone incursions. So how much of this is Russia suddenly realizing that, hey, everyone around it, the Western allies, if you like, are getting serious and taking serious steps?
Well, so let's break that into a couple of pieces here. What Russia has seen over the last 3 months, maybe, is that Europe absolutely is getting even more serious and taking more serious steps, in part because Europe doesn't feel they can depend on the United States. But if you're strategizing in the Kremlin, you say, well, Europe alone is a lot weaker than Europe with the United States. What scares the Kremlin is Europe and the United States redoubling their effort to support Ukraine. That would be enormously helpful to Zelenskyy. And if you're Putin, it's much easier to try to dissuade Trump than it would be to try to break apart the unity and the power that's growing in Europe to support Ukraine. Because a lot of those European countries feel more directly threatened by Russia. The United States, of course, is not directly threatened by Russia. And that would be true no matter who the president is. That's just a reality about oceans and the American military capacity compared to, any other country in the world. So for Putin, talking Trump down from fully supporting Ukraine is absolutely essential. Because if Trump does some of the things he said he's going to do, then Russia could really be in trouble. But with Trump, he changes his mind a lot, so we don't know.
Okay. And Professor, Mr. Zelenskyy expressed hopes that the momentum of the Middle East peace deal will help end the war in Ukraine. Now, do you see that kind of diplomatic momentum carrying over? Could Mr. Trump feel emboldened to chase another peace breakthrough with Moscow?
Well, those are kind of two questions, right? So I certainly think that the president could feel emboldened. And look, we can talk about the peace deal in Gaza, which on the one hand is, the hostages are back. We've had a few days without bombing. All of that is great news. But we also should be aware that this war could start again tomorrow. But nonetheless, his visit to Israel, his speech in the Knesset, these are things that are enormously important to Trump. And I think he might feel I have some momentum here. The problem is, from Ukraine's perspective, they have one way to end this war. And it's not a peace deal. It's winning. And that's not going to happen overnight. So the deal, Trump can't come in and wave a wand and say, get every Russian troop off of Ukrainian territory, which is what Ukraine would want. So to some extent, this is a more difficult war to stop because the war in the Middle East, this deal that we got, and very happy we got it, that's been discussed for almost since the war started. Everyone knew this is where it had to land eventually. And I think you could say a similar thing in Ukraine, that everyone kind of thinks that Russia will end up with much of the territory it took, but I don't think Ukraine is there yet. I don't think Europe is there yet. So I think it's less likely in Ukraine. Okay,
but I do want to press you on that particular point about Trump's approach, if you like. I mean, we saw what, the Gaza peace plan approach was like. He got Steve Witkoff. He brought in his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and basically, he brought them in, according to the New York Times, because they had the ability to convince people to say yes, to stop the fighting, to agree to a ceasefire and agree to talk about everything else later. Do you think that's going to be what, President Trump is trying to do as well? Get that ceasefire deal and then enjoy the moment and worry about everything else, or let everyone else worry about everything else?
That's certainly what he would like to do. Now, this deal, again, we don't know if it's going to hold, but it's not just stop now and see what happens. There is a lot more to the deal than that. Whether it will be honored by both sides, we don't know. But some of these things here are quite significant. Just for example, a multinational force trying to keep the peace and begin rebuilding Gaza that is being sent from other Muslim countries, some as far away from Gaza as Indonesia. But that's a different kind of thing than it's been tried in the past. So there is some innovative thinking in the Gaza deal. Is that possible in Ukraine? Yes, absolutely, it's possible. Could you get a 72 or a 2-week stop in the fighting? Yes, but that's not the same as what we saw in Gaza. Remember that the Israeli government, and more importantly for this conversation, the Israeli people had one demand, which is get the hostages back. That's what the Israeli people wanted. And that's what Trump's peace deal was able to deliver. The Gazan people, not Hamas, but the Gazan people wanted one thing, which was, we don't want any more Israeli bombs falling on us. And he delivered that as well. I think in Ukraine, it's a little bit more complicated once you kind of blow a whistle and get everyone to stop. And, to be clear, any day without fighting anywhere is a good day. So I'm be all for this, but I think it's a little harder to get from here to there.
Right. Volodymyr Zelenskyy now in the U.S. would be well aware of what's happening, would be aware of this potential or this upcoming meeting, if you like, between Putin and Trump. What do you think he's going to ask for? And is he going to get any of it?
Well, Zelenskyy also was undoubtedly well aware of his first meeting at the Trump White House, right? So it is a tough situation into which he's working. I don't know if he's going to get it. And the truth is, if he walks out of here with a handshake agreement from Trump, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's going to be a lot of T's that need to be crossed, a lot of I's that need to be dotted, and none of that can happen until Trump meets with Putin. So from Zelenskyy, it's good that he's coming here. It's good that he's trying to get this, but it's not going to happen quickly, I don't think.
All right, Professor Mitchell, we will have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for talking to us on Asia First this morning. Lincoln Mitchell is a lecturer at the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. Thanks very much, Professor.